Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I'll be exploring whether the i5-4690 is still capable of running games today. It has 6 megabytes of cache, it runs at a stock of 3.5 gigahertz, and this is the non-K version, so it means overclocking is really out of the picture for it. I am running a water cooler on it. The system specs are a Gigabyte Z97P and running 16 gigabytes of RAM with the 980 Ti. All games are being ran at 4K, just to kind of stress the CPU more. Some games will be GPU bound, but I think with the 980 Ti, I think it will really stress the games out. So this is the stock cooler. So if you were going to use a stock cooler, I'd recommend the 4690K one, only because it has a copper slug. So it basically means they'll be able to transfer heat a lot better than something like the newer Kaby Lake or Skylake chips, where they don't have the copper slug. It's a small difference, but to be honest, they really should include it in their new CPUs. It's, costs quite a bit. So the CPU costs about 180 quid on eBay right now, which is actually quite expensive. I would say, you could look for cheaper CPUs, but it does have 4 cores and 4 threads. It's not hyper-threading at all, but it does give solid performance, and here are some benchmarks which I've laid out here, which I hope you find interesting. So we come to our first game, which is CSGO. So we saw an average of 165 FPS and a minimum of 123 FPS. This was just messing around with bots, but yeah, this is clearly a game that is optimized. This is actually quite a CPU intensive game, surprisingly, but yeah, just blast through it with my 980 Ti. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this game for the CPU. Even with the integrated graphics, it still works actually pretty well. So yeah, moving on to Rocket League. So we come to our second game, which is Rocket League. The reason why I'm picking these games is because I think they're the most played games. I have a few more intensive games later on, but yeah, we had a minimum of 80 FPS and an average of 100 FPS, which, for 4K is great. To be honest, the game looks great, even though these are rendered out in 1080p, but yeah, definitely the CPU can handle this game. So yeah, on to our next game, which is City Skyline. So the next game we have is City Skylines, which is quite a CPU intensive game. You can clearly see my computer was chugging at this. The minimum FPS when I got it in close was 21, and then the average was 36, which is definitely playable, but I would crank down the settings because all these games are put at max, and the game still looks pretty good. Overall, yeah, I would say this game actually succeeded in what I was trying to do. It's not a type of game where you need 60 FPS. It's perfectly playable for me. So yeah, on to our next game, which is the most intensive game, Space Hulk. So here we come to Space Hulk, which is a very unoptimized game, but really shows off what the CPU can do. There's loads of monsters on screen, there are loads of action happening, it's great to pace it, and the minimum FPS was 12 and the average was 55. This game will strain it. Any CPU and GPU for that matter, and playing in I think I was playing in 4K here, it did relatively well. I would definitely recommend this game for playing with the 4690. There is really nothing this CPU can handle. So yeah, on to my conclusion. So would I recommend the 4690? No, not for the price at the moment. I would say maybe in a few years when the price gets a bit lower, and especially since all these new CPU chips are coming out from Intel and AMD, you could definitely get a cheaper price. Also factoring in that we're using older DDR3, when nowadays we have DDR4, which is a lot faster. So maybe in a few years, once it's maybe 100 quid, but at the moment, yeah, very good, but would not recommend buying it.